ended up in the garbage. I was like, those schools don't even exist anymore. He said, go ahead, take them.
Man, those are sweet. Yeah, that's a good story. And those are sweet band. Now, what's that Steelman to your?
That's actually so the travel baseball team that I had for a bunch of years when my son played was Steelman Baseball Club. So that was the one of the banners that we put up, like of the team when we put it. It would have all of our sponsors. We hang it on the back of the dugout or whatever. You know what I mean? For each. So I saved them all. I got them all over my garage.
That's pretty cool too.
Well, Lorain Middle School was standing. We were the Steelmen too.
Yep. That's where another guy that I coached with. So I couldn't do Southview because at that time Southview already had a travel baseball team. And one of the other guys that I coached with was a Lorain High grad, so he wanted it to be the Steelman. So I was like, whatever.
Cool. All right. 1 minute. Gotta go on mute.
Hey, Mike, did you see that Aaron Simmons, Javon, he just released Admiral King and Southview masks?
For real?
Yeah, I'm gonna start promoting it tomorrow. He just dropped. He told me this. I talked to him this weekend. So they just dropped today. $5 from each one purchased goes to the Booster Club.
Very cool.
Same thing he was doing with the Lorain High masks, but really nice, man. The Southview, and you got to get a Southview and an Admiral King.
Well, I did serve both buildings, but you know which one I'm getting first.
So, I'll be honest, man. I'm an Admiral King graduate. My heart's with Southview, man. I'm getting Southview first.
There you go, Brian.
All right.
All I know is if I went to Lorain, I'd want to go to Southview.
I hope that's publicly aired right now so everyone can hear nonsense. No, no, we are Titans. We are one. But yeah. I mean, Southview's got the mascot with the black eye, though. So, I mean, it's kind of cool.
Hey, Southview's mascot is the most historic mascot in the history of mascots. When have you ever seen anything? Mascots are kind of all over the place. Okay, you see duplicates. When have you ever seen an angel with a black eye?
Never. It's legendary.
Tia, you better get one of those Admiral King masks for your brother. I know he wants one.
I'll think about it. Board members, can you hear me? I hear Joe. Can anybody hear me? Board members, can you hear me?
There are other people.
Board members, can you hear me? Board members, can you hear me?
Tia, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I think we've got it now. The technology gods have arrived. Okay, so roll call.
All right, Mr. Ballard,
Here.
Ms. Nazario,
Here.
sorry, I can't see on the screen.
Whose name did you just call? Johnson. Ms. Johnson?
Here.
Mr. Sturgill
Here.
and Mr. Williams.
Here.
Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next line is recognition of visitors. Seeing none, we will have our first hearing of the public. We have a hearing for the public. There's a microphone right here. And we ask you to try to keep your comments within a 3-minute window. If there's anyone from the public, please.
I'd like to thank the board for giving me this opportunity to speak. My wife, Angela. My name is Donovan Wilson, Angela Wilson. We have a child, Seth Wilson, that's currently in the district here, transferred from Akron St. Vincent St. Mary's, come back to his home school, okay, for the community. But I just would like to talk about not having sports, especially for these seniors, but all kids. Lorain sports, I coached in the district for 23 years, worked for the city schools. I understand, like so many of these other coaches, that the impact you have on these kids closing this avenue of canceling sports, you have cut something that they've worked for their entire lives with opportunity to go play college sports and to better their lives. Already with the economic situation that's in Lorain that they're coming from, I think that we severely hindered them with a decision to make the choice for these parents, myself included, not to have sports. I think it's a travesty. I look at kids now that are policemen, kids that are in politics, kids that have gone on to do so well because they had sports to motivate them academically, and it taught them discipline and being responsible. And with that being said, you know, I know some people, they kind of talk about how they can't go nowhere. Nobody's going to take them. That's not nothing to be proud of. These kids are dead in water right now. So I appreciate you guys really trying to keep us safe, keep the kids safe. I really commend you and I respect that. However, and we don't want, and I've heard also you don't want to tell somebody that they got somebody sick from COVID. But in the same breath, do you want to go home and tell somebody that a kid got shot that could have been at practice in a controlled environment for 2 hours a day, where he's not going to go out and play because he's going to be too tired? I know many of these coaches, and believe me, when their kids come home, they're not going out. My son is one of them. I actually had two that were going here. They're not coming home. They're coming home and going to sleep, and then getting back up and doing their homework. So with that being said, I just think that we need to rethink all this immediately. Especially, it's even harder when everybody around us is playing. Okay?
And I'd just like to speak on behalf of the education. Not all children learn the same. My son, I had to remove him because he needs to be in a classroom and he needs to sit and have a teacher teach him. My oldest son is fine learning virtually or, online, but my other son can't handle it. I think a lot of the children are not going to be capable of succeeding, not having at least one day in a classroom with a teacher, with a positive role model. And I just would like to see maybe academically that we try to work through and possibly get some of these kids in the classroom that 6 to 8 hours are not in the streets. The 6 to 8 hours are not cheating through technology. I'm not going to say they're not going to cheat. You have so many parents, guardians, grandparents who can't help their children educationally. I have a bachelor's degree and I struggled at the end of the school season trying to help my children do their homework. And so I would just like to see also something possibly be done where they could get into the classroom at least 1 to 2 times a week. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. I know my time is going down, but also too, I think we have the perfect setup as far as games go, better than any other high school that I know. We have Channel 20. This young fella here, I'm gonna call him young because he paid me to say that, but this young guy here does a great job. We can live stream games with just the senior parents or no parents at all. We'd be willing to deal with that as long as we could watch it on Channel 20 and see a lot of these kids fulfill their dreams. I think that it could be worked out. I know we have a lot of intelligent people on the board, and I just don't think that we're not capable of making the right choices as far as making it a safer place than these other communities. Thank you for your time.
there anyone else? Hearing none, we'll move on to number 6, approval of the minutes from August 10th.
Motion to approve minutes from the August 10th board meeting.
Support.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Sturgill,
Yes.
Mr. Ballard,
Yes.
Ms. Nazario, and Ms. Johnson.
Yes.
Thank you. Those are approved. On to number 7, old business. First thing up is a levy update. Bill, I'm not sure, will that come from you?
Yeah, the levy's actually going pretty well. We had our second meeting, and we're having our next meeting is Wednesday. And everything's going good. We have our signs are being printed, our literature is forthcoming, and all we have to do is, develop our literature a little bit and set our dates, and we're going to send that out. But it's a renewal levy, so I mean we're going to it will have that type of message in it.
So are you all having much luck with endorsements coming out of the community?
No, we're well endorsed by the community. I mean, I actually mentioned to Bambi that, can we get too many endorsements? And she said, no, certainly not. I said, well, how many do you want to put on the literature? Isn't that big? The card. But no, the endorsements are coming in. The community's great. And I think anybody who can help is willing to help.
So I've considered having the board go through a formal motion of endorsement, but it seems as if we've already endorsed when we were able to allow it to go on the ballot.
We endorsed it once.
That's exactly right. So
I think they can use our name.
take that as an endorsement by us putting it on. So you're feel free to put us on there. Thank you for that. Is there anything else? And where are the next meetings? Where are the public going to be invited into any of the bigger groups, or you're not sure yet?
The public isn't. We've got a group of 8. We social distance, and we've kept it kind of closed on purpose because of the virus and everything. And it's a group of people that have did this before. Okay, it's not our first time, so we kind of know what to do, and timing's everything when you're running a levy. Okay, so Mr. Graham, would you like to say anything?
I can just emphasize one point. This is a renewal levy, which means no new taxes to the district. This is levies that were approved many, many years in the past, and we put some of them together out of respect for the communities. We're constantly going back and knocking on doors and to constantly renew levies that have been approved in the past. So again, no new tax.
Very good. Thank you. You good?
I'm good.
You have anything to add, Courtney?
Nope,
Are you
I'm
good?
good.
All right, we'll move on to number 8, report and recommendations of the treasurer. You have nothing at this time? Okay, number 9, we're report and recommendations of the CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Ballard. And I'm going to defer to Ross and Aaron and the folks in the Zoom meeting. And as we have been doing over the course of the past 2 months now, is gather a lot of information, engage a lot of people, and work through a process with fidelity and to get us to the point where we are ready to implement a plan. And we are here tonight to share the final stages of that. Understanding that when I say the final stages of the plan, we will constantly monitor and adjust our sales accordingly based on information that we receive and changes, whether it's in changes and updates in the research that's being done around COVID, or as we continue to listen to our staff and community, parents and students on how to get better. So I will defer, and Ross, if you'd be so kind as to facilitate the conversation.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. So we'll start out with just a quick look at our process and where we've been, and then that'll lead us into the final draft of the plan that we'll show, and then talk just about some steps that we've already taken. So to start, just to recap, here's our process again. You've seen our process multiple times, and where we left off before the last time we met, we were into the second draft of our plan, going into focus groups. And so we want to talk just a little bit about the themes that came out of the focus groups, and then some immediate revisions that we made to the plan that then have led into the final draft. So step 12 into 13 is where we are right now. Let's see. All right, so the focus group process, we ended up with 2 staff focus groups, 13 total staff members. We were a little bit disappointed. We had invited 45 staff members to participate in focus groups. We ended up with 13. We also intended to have family focus groups. We invited 30 family members, and we actually ended up with 0 for a focus group. So we were a little bit disappointed that we didn't get quite the breadth of feedback that we were hoping for here. But when we couple that with the feedback from each of the 8 different work groups, from our restart group, from the first vetting group, and then the focus groups, we still feel pretty good about the amounts of input, feedback, and revisions that we've been able to make along the way. So main things we were looking for feedback on were overall impressions of the plan. We were looking for very specific feedback on synchronous and asynchronous schedules for learning. We were looking for supports for vulnerable students, technology needs, and then how we can best engage families and staff. And so from the focus groups, what we saw were these 6 themes. So overall, there was actually really strong support for the plan across the focus groups, specifically around emphasizing safety, organization, and overall clarity. Then there were concerns about too much synchronous time in pre-K through 5 specifically. Attendance, the group said, was not defined clearly enough for student attendance, rather. Not sure how technology support was going to work, that there was a desire for district-wide / content-wide collaboration across the district in these 3 weeks. And then there's some concern about supports for the most vulnerable students. So then in the past week, went right back to our work groups again. And so some of the revisions, the first item, since there was just support for the plan as a whole, obviously no revision, but then the schedules were revised again. So the pre-K 5 schedule was revised again to lessen the synchronous time, increase the asynchronous time for students to get closer into alignment with the hours recommendations. Attendance was reworked again. And so we'll go through in a little better detail here in the body of the plan what that looks like. But pretty much we have 3 ways now that we're going to look to keep track of student attendance, and there's flexibility based on if it's a synchronous day and asynchronous day. For technology, we created a helpline, and we'll talk about that in some greater detail. So staff, students, family call it helpline, and there's a tree that's going to route them to the right folks to provide support. If it's a computer died and we need a new device, or it's a staff member that needs some support, maybe using an application, but we can get support that way. Then desire for district collaboration starting Wednesday this week. We actually are going to have Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, district-wide collaboration opportunities for our teachers to prioritize standards and to start to design some instruction at the end of the week. And then number 6, concerned about most vulnerable students. We've got Ed Camp. We'll talk about Ed Camp a little bit later, but it's our main vehicle for professional learning, where we're going to have not this week, but next week sessions really emphasizing social emotional health and well-being for families and staff and students. Then we've also made some revisions to the meal. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And then more targeted support from our social workers as well. So those are all just immediate adjustments and revisions we made based on the feedback from the focus groups that we received. So those are some of the immediate revisions. We'll go into the plan now next. right, so this is our final draft of our plan. Aaron, you want to talk just a little bit about the general kind of intent and the first little bit about it to kind of set it up for everybody?
Absolutely. We tried to make the plan as responsive, as you mentioned, to the feedback that we had received as possible, to make sure that it was clear that this was created with all those different points of input that you spoke of. For the opening of this, we have what to expect, because that is the question that we've been asked the most of our community and of our staff members. So this document is laid out to set those expectations as clearly as possible. Can you go to the next page? The table of contents obviously will take you quickly through the document. The pages are all paginated. If you can go to the next. We reiterate what the process was that Ross has really walked us through for the past couple of months here. We have a reminder of the data and the research that informed the approach of our plan, including how the latest research really fed the decision to go fully remote. And Ross, be patient with me. I'm trying to get to the point where we talk about like phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Yep. So I know I'm whipping for it.
Very good. I think the other point too, just to make here, is there's a lot of evidence and research. These are 3 sources that really heavily impacted our thinking. And in a very recent way. So we felt it important to include them as part of the plan. And these are all live links. So anybody can click the link and go right to the article.
Thank you for mentioning that, Ross. This document will be placed onto the website and it'll be pushed out through social media, through text, all of the traditional ways that our community is used to, so that you can reference this for yourself, print out any aspects that you need, and yes, access those live links to get more information for each of these components. We wanted a reminder here as well about the focus for the decision-making process that went into this plan. The leadership team really kept going back to this idea of, okay, what are we really trying to do here? Who are we really serving? And we kept that focus on our most vulnerable children. And you can see the definitions here. Ross, I know that you've detailed this before, but just a reminder, our focus is to protect those vulnerable children whose social and emotional needs aren't being met, those children who have specific needs beyond their demographics, whose needs are exacerbated by not being in school, children who have medical complexity, genetic metabolic conditions, congenital heart disease, etc. And then in the blue portion, we have a reminder that people of any age with certain health conditions are at an increased risk of severe illness from COVID.
So looking at our adults, one of the first things we needed to do at the beginning of July was survey our staff. And we have to make sure that we're careful for our students, our families, but also our staff. And what we learned through the survey is that a little bit over 50% of our staff themselves either meet the CDC criteria or they're caring for someone who meets the CDC criteria for increased severe illness from COVID. And so, with the development of our plan, we had to be mindful of our students, our families, and our staff to make sure that we're placing safety as our main focal point. So a few of the items here that we think are just really important. We wanted to make sure that our plan was developed specific to Lorain. We did not want to take just a very bland approach that did not look very specifically at our staff, our families, our students, and then also make sure that we match up very directly what the needs of our communities are. And we needed feedback along the way. So the graphic on the right side of the screen, you can see the data points that we looked at from our initial leadership team, staff survey, the family survey, all the work groups that we had, the focus groups, the initial vetting group, to make sure that we had a really good, comprehensive, thorough approach to information gathering across all of our stakeholders.
And Ross, it was really important to the leadership team, and I know to yourself guiding this process, to ensure that everybody was clear that there was an opportunity to provide that input. And that graphic was there to remind us all where that happened along the way, and that, hey, by the way, this is a working document. That's the reason it's going to be living online, because we understand that there will be some course corrections that may need to occur. And right here, this is the slide that I wanted to really get to. As we mentioned, we're starting out in this remote environment. So the plan that you are looking at sets those expectations and details of very specific protocols that will be occurring within that remote environment. So I know a lot of districts have information about how masks will be worn and how often we're going to be sanitizing surfaces, et cetera. But since we're remote, that's not a component of this particular plan. This is the phase 1 plan. On this slide, slide number 8, it showcases that phase 1, remote for all. And as a reminder, September 8th is the first day for students. It's running through October 16th. And when we reach other points in our community when it is safe to start returning back to school, we'll be releasing the plans and the protocols within those phases.
And our hope is that we will be able to move to phase 2 and eventually phase 3. And so we'll talk, and Jeff Hawks and his work in particular with operations has started back in the spring, but looking at preparations that we need to make. But as Aaron said, we need to couple this with the community and what community spread looks like to make sure, again, safety is at the focal point. And so we hope to get to in-person learning, but right now our emphasis is on opening school in a remote environment. So as we start the first quarter of the school year, we will be monitoring in an ongoing way in partnership with the health department to make sure that as soon as conditions improve, that we can work to bring our folks back safely. And I think this is really important. We've gotten a lot of questions about what happens after the middle of October, after the first quarter. We're looking to give at least 1 month's worth of notice before any changes are made, so that we can be confident that the pattern and trend that we're seeing across the county is a safe pattern to bring our families and staff and students back into buildings. And we recognize that staff, families, students need time to make adjustments. So we feel like 1 month is a very respectful amount of time that we can provide notice. And so if adjustments need to be made with childcare or work schedules, that we're respectful to our families, our staff, our students, to be able to make those adjustments. So we would not decide we're going to start go to phase 2 and it's parent choice, and that's going to start the following week. We would not do that. We want to provide at least a month's notice for our staff, our families, and our students.
And if I could just briefly interject, I think one of the points of confusion earlier was that we would make a decision on a 9 weeks basis. And keep in mind, 9 weeks exist because, candidly, it's just an arbitrary time frame, because we thought it made sense a long, long time ago to be able to prepare and share information with parents about how their children are progressing. If we also know, and we heard about it in the public comments this evening, we've also had many conversations as a collective group, and collective groups that are broken out, that kids need to be in school as soon as we can create a safe environment for them. So if we can do this in the middle of the 9 weeks, there's no benefit to waiting till the end of the 9 weeks. We'll execute as soon as we can. But to Ross's point, we also understand that people have life changes to make in order to do this the right way. And our goal is to be as respectful to our families, our students, and our staff as we can be throughout this process.
So let's go deeper into phase 1. So some of the specifics here. Aaron already mentioned, and we've tried to broadcast this everywhere as far and wide as we can. September 8th is the first day for students. Again, we're partnering with the health department to make sure we're continuously monitoring the conditions. Obviously, we've extended staff professional learning from 3 days to the first 3 weeks. Dress code requirement that's gone out again. There will be no dress code requirement for this school year. Obviously, again, we've been through the public comment here. We have canceled close proximity sports for fall. Technology has gone out to staff. Student distribution of laptops starts Thursday this week for our first school, and then for everybody else is next week. So all students will receive a device pre-K through 12. As well as we're working on internet to make sure that every family has reliable internet across the district as well. And then again, we're going to be very persistent in communicating through a lot of different media. So our models really boil down to this. When we got our work groups together and we looked at some best practices for remote learning, what we found is we need to have a balance of synchronous learning, where everybody's learning together at the same time, asynchronous learning, where our students are able to go learn at their own time, at their own schedule, at their own pace, and then semi-synchronous. So we can have maybe some flexible small groups on kind of an as-needed basis. And each of these models is going to look a little bit different from preschool through elementary, through middle school, through high school. And the work groups around each of those levels design those schedules, made adjustments based on feedback, had a second draft, had a third draft, had a fourth draft. In the case of middle school, had a sixth draft. So we can be as clear, as consistent, and flexible as possible to make sure we can meet the most students' needs in as many ways possible. So let's talk just a little bit about technology. And Barb, if you're on the line, you want to hop on here and talk just a little bit about laptop student devices, but then also what you and Brett have been working on with the help desk.
Sure. When we have the distributions, and each building will be announcing their different plans and dates, etc. iPads will be for pre-K through first grade. Laptops will be for second grade through 12th grade. We're working on the internet Wi-Fi hotspots for all families. What we've done is we've kind of done a number of things. So we have on our website currently under the family tab, we have a bunch of orientation videos, or I'm calling them orientation videos. So they're like 1, 2, 3-minute videos on how to get into Google, how to get into Zoom. So like those quickie videos, if you're stuck and you don't have that process down, those are there for parents. We actually had them, we had our LCS teachers create these videos at an elementary level, at a middle school level, and at a high school level, so that we kind of get all the different facets. So, whether they're talking to an elementary school child or family in trying to get into these different tools. Because we know that it's going to be the students who, although the families are helping them, we know that the students are going to be the ones who ultimately we're trying to train to get into those. In addition to the instructional videos, we are going to have a help desk. The hope is that the help desk will be online this coming Thursday. The point of that is that we know that there are some buildings that are getting their laptops starting this week. And we also want the helpline to be out there for the teachers. So it's going to be very similar to when you call into any helpline and you get that menu of dial 1 for this or dial 2 for that. So we're going to have a device line for the hardware. We're going to have a software line for the software such as Google and Zoom and any of the programs. We're going to have a Spanish line, and then we're going to have an other, because sometimes people are like, well, I don't know if it's a hardware or software issue. We are going to have staff manning these different lines, and then we're also going to have a specific teacher line so that, let's say a teacher is in the middle of a class and they run into a situation. So we're trying to kind of cover all bases in regards to that. And the tree is being set up by Brett Kluper and his whole team. And they'll be covering the device line, but he is the brains behind this. And then on my side, we'll be covering the software side.
So we know technology was a real big concern through the first vetting group and again through the second vetting group. And our intention here is to have this set up, again, like Barb said, at the end of the week, so we can do a trial run next week. So as problems arise, we can practice so that the following week when students are ready here, we worked out some of those kinks beforehand. So that's what we're looking at to provide some enhanced support for technology, devices and software. All right, so meals and food. Jeff Hawks, you want to walk us through this?
Hi, it's Jane Hawks. Jeff isn't here right now. He had an emergency and had to leave, so I'm not sure if someone can pick this part up for him.
Sure. So
switching screens.
Yeah, good.
I know that they've been working really hard on this. What's that? So there's a new meal service that is going to be starting for when our students come back to our schools. And they've been working really hard to listen to the concerns and the needs of our families to make meals more available to them, especially when we are going to be expecting them to pick up meals and have school at the same time, et cetera. So beginning September 8th, meals will be distributed on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So on Tuesdays, you'll get a 2-meal bag, which would equate to, 4 meals. And on Thursdays, a 3-meal bag to cover you for 3 days. So breakfast and lunch, there'll be 6 meals.
And the purpose of that change was not because we were trying to be, or we're being lazy, we're actually responding to parent feedback. They were saying, we don't go shopping every day. Why do we have to come out every day to get the food? So we're trying to do is give them more food to last more days, a couple times a week.
Another change will be that food service locations will be expanded so that meals will be delivered actually out to some of our bus stops, so into our neighborhoods to help facilitate that process for our families who might not have transportation or it's hard to leave your home in the middle of the afternoon.
And I'd like to thank Jeff Hawks and Frank Hovertich from Aramark for all the research that he did into this. Again, when we got feedback from our families about being able to have access to food. Half of our families who wanted access didn't have it. So we went from providing it, again, not only at different times, which is the next one, but different places. I think we're going from 9 different stops to 36 different stops. And if the circumstances for your family is so extenuating, let us know and we'll accommodate it even further. Obviously, a goal during any time, but specifically these goofy times, is to make sure we're taking care of people in need. So if there are ways we can be more accommodating, please let us know what it looks like by calling the helpline.
Another thing we heard from families is that sometimes it was really hard to make it to that meal distribution location for that particular 20-minute slot. So at our middle schools, GJW, Longfellow, Southview, meals will be available between the hours of 4 p.m. and 6 p.m. So in the parking lots, you'll have a 2-hour window in which to pick up those meals.
And again, the goal for those sites is the fact that we thought we could cover the most in enough buildings where no matter where you're coming from, it's not a long distance to travel.
And just 2 changes, because we know that we'll be receiving some questions about this. We want to front load as much information as possible. So meals during the school year will be for that school week, so Monday through Fridays when meals will be available. Unfortunately, there is not, under this program, we do not have weekend meals, but we're about to talk about some other options for that. In addition, there are requirements in which the food must be for our students. This summer, it was a little more flexible. If there was a child, please have some food. So now we must ask, is your child a Lorain City Schools student? So you'll be seeing that as well.
And there was a discussion on how best to demonstrate that. And do we need IDs? And what we don't do is for the logistics to get in the way of eating. So it's going to be simply a question that we ask that they'll need to respond yes to.
So the food bank is really, again, more of an extension on the meals. And when you guys want to, I don't think Jeff Karuski could join us tonight. either for that. Want to talk about that a little bit, Aaron?
Sure. Yeah, and I should have prefaced that by saying that he's dealing with some of the grief counseling needs of our community tonight, and he did ask for me to speak on some of these items. So to help supplement the pantries of our families for like the weekends and for the adults in their homes, our schools will continue to be sites for those food pantry distributions, the drive-through distributions, including some additional community sites such as Black River. This coming Thursday, General Johnny Wilson will be the next drive-through pantry site from 4:30 to 6 o'clock, and you'll see that pattern. So on Thursdays throughout our middle schools, those food pantries. The dates will always be shared on the website. They will always be shared on our social media, and we will do our very best to just push out those dates and locations at every opportunity. One more thing in addition to that. This year, we will have social workers who are assigned to each of our schools, and they put together a fabulous resource that shares not only the food banks that are located in our schools, but the days and times and distribution sites throughout our community, as well as other additional community resources. So when we launch our remote learning, there will also be a site on our website for you to be able to access all of that information. They did a fantastic job creating that resource.
If I could also just very briefly thank, and I'm going to screw this up, Bill, I'm going to ask, because it's the Army Reserve that helps with this, correct? And I want to thank, again, when I was out there last Thursday that we shared, and it was many Army Reserve, Courtney, were there. There was 20 staff members, 25 staff members. There was a big crowd of people. And in the comment that I made, I just want to emphasize it. It's easy to volunteer once or twice, but they are there regularly on these and have been since before COVID hit. But again, it was a greater intensity once it did. So I just want to thank everybody for demonstrating how we react here in Lorain, which is by circling the wagons and taking care of one another.
Some of the additional family supports that are coming out through the family office. You've heard about these phone calls that we've been making to families all summer long. And the first question they ask is, how are you doing? How's your family doing right now? And there is a very concerted effort by our social workers to make sure every single home is getting that phone call, is getting the resources that they need for stability in their home, and also verifying contact information. In the weeks to come, man, we are going to have just a lot of information to be sharing to make sure that remote learning is going well in your home, that your children are succeeding. We need that update. In addition, our Mercy school-based health clinics will be modifying the ways they serve our children, not only having some in-person immunizations, but they'll be able to facilitate virtual healthcare visits to remain safe in our pandemic environment.
If I could jump out of that too real quick, and they'll also be in the clinic, so if you want a traditional appointment, we can accommodate that. We're working with Mercy, and especially during the first 9 weeks when children will not be in our schools, on how to accommodate and meet the needs of our families that are just students here. But I was also, during the pandemic time, I had a doctor's appointment, and it was virtual. I highly recommend it. There's no waiting room. You don't have to drive there. Just pop on, get the attention you need, pop off, and it was impressive, actually. So I highly recommend it.
You save so much time.
Yes.
Yeah. And I mentioned Mr. Krusky wasn't able to be here tonight because he's responding to some of the grief needs in our community. The way that we are doing that in a pandemic is if there is a child, if there's a student right now or a community member who is really suffering from the loss of one of our students, just terrible this weekend, they are able to connect you with a grief counselor. Call the number 440-830-HELP. So that's 830-4357. That line is checked every 10-15 minutes, and we will get those mental supports to you, either by phone or through a Zoom counseling session. A reminder about how we communicate during this time. Just real quick, I'll go through this, but the website is kind of like the big daddy. It is where everything kind of lives. So if there's information going out from the district or your school building, it will be there on the website. We push that information out as well through weekly e-newsletters. Dr. Graham aims to have just really personal and frequent information out to our staff members and our community through videos and an update on all of that has been happening each week during this preparation for the school year. If there is something really immediate and of concern, or a launch, for instance, of our new plan, or a change in how we will be delivering information, you will receive a robocall from us. That's how you'll know that this is a really serious thing. It will not be about a fundraiser. It will not be about a reminder of, it'll be a big deal. Social media is where we push out all of these different facets of information, as well as populate it with photos of what's happening in our school. And it's a great way to engage in conversation, ask questions, etc. And we're big believers in local journalism. We meet weekly with our local newspapers and share information with television stations, radio stations, as that critical checks and balances about what's happening here and the unfettered view of the updates, the successes, and some of the challenges that we face as part of our story. At the building level, it's a tiered approach to communication in which throughout this remote environment, here's what you can expect. If it is a standard information about what's happening within your child's class, then you will receive an email, or you might get a classroom dojo reminder at the elementary level, or a remind text for middle school and high school. If there is a concern about your student, about your child, perhaps attendance isn't where it should be, perhaps your child might not be grasping content, you'll receive a phone call from the teacher. Again, that phone call, that personal, that more urgent way of communicating with you. If there is a serious concern requiring a high level of support, you'll receive a phone call, but it will be from the building administrator, the principal, to be able to work closely with you to help your child move forward. Our goal is to be as responsive as possible. So teachers and administrators, their hope is to get back to you within 24 hours. If you leave a message for them after hours, please wait until the next day so that they can get to you. But that's really critical for us during this time, is to stay in contact.
So then we know that everybody doesn't learn the exact same way. And so for extra help and support, Jane, I'll set this up and then I'll bring you into the conversation here as well. So we do know that some of our teachers are going to teach with a team teaching model. We know that some of our paraprofessionals will be helping out with individual students, or even in some small groups at times. So for a staff standpoint and a family standpoint and community, don't be surprised if there are multiple adults working together. And then you'll get a clear schedule of both the synchronous and asynchronous times. And during those asynchronous times, or even semi-synchronous times, there likely will be opportunities for some small group support. And then also our related service providers will be working there. They may also be working during some of the synchronous times. And Jane, you want to add to this a little bit about how some speech services will work, some services for students with disabilities, other related service providers?
Sure. Thanks, Ross. It's exactly what was just being explained, that, related service providers like speech and OT and PT will be in contact with families and look at scheduling those times when those activities can occur and outline exactly how they will occur. And so will intervention specialists as well. They'll try to use asynchronous time as much as possible. that might not always be practical or available, but they'll do their best to stay away from those synchronous learning hours and times. And each teacher will be contacting parents and complete a distance learning plan that will spell out exactly what that learning will look like in a virtual setting for each individual child as it relates to their IEP and their individual needs.
Yeah, thanks, Jane. And then again, our social workers, we mentioned this earlier, but to revisit again, we'll be providing some direct supports to students as well. And then the last bit with technology, we've talked about that again through the helpline. So participation and submission of work. Teachers will post class expectations. We are going to expect assignments to be turned in virtually. We are going to work really hard to minimize the exchange of paper right now. It's simply not as safe. So we are going to try to really emphasize hard that students should be turning in their work virtually. We are going to grade. So it's, and all of our courses up. We have decided from a grading standpoint that we are going to take a step back from the standards-based grading that occurred last year. And Bill, Oli, Aretha, you guys mind talking just a little bit about the work group you guys had that looked at standards-based grading and the recommendation of that group?
Sure thing. We had a group that served as a standards-based grading focus group back in February, and we reconvened the same group and reviewed the pros and cons from the February meeting, and then also took a look at the feedback from some of our building leaders, and then contextualized that into pros and cons as well. And then we posed the same questions that went to building leaders to the staff that was in the focus group. And basically, you know, the outcome was there were definitely benefits, and there were also some concerns with, you know, one of the biggest being the parent-facing report card, where it was lengthy and could be somewhat confusing to folks. So the recommendation, like you said, was to move away from standards-based grading.
But we are grading, and just to be clear about that. All right, so then let's talk just a little bit about attendance. And Bill, I'm going to come back to you again here in a minute. So this was, again, another area that came out of our focus groups that said, you know, we need greater clarity about attendance. And so the Department of Education provides really three main ways to take attendance. And they are participation in learning sessions on synchronous days. If you're there and you log into Zoom with your teacher, you're there. Then you can also do logins through a web-based tool. And so for us, that's going to be the use of Clever. And then you're also allowed to use completion of a project or assignment that spans multiple days. And so Bill led a group for us today that took a little bit of a deeper look at that. And then Steve, please chime in. Steve was a member of this group today as well. So Bill, you want to go a little bit farther, and then Steve, hop in, please, at any point.
Sure. I think the main point from today's group is that Clever will serve as the method that we'll use to collect attendance data. And PowerSchool is connected to Clever so that teachers can visually see all the classes that they have by simply clicking on a block. And then all of their students will appear, and you'll be able to see items like who logged in today, who logged in yesterday, or you can do a historical view where you look back over the course of a week to see who logged in. The group also talked about and established how attendance rates do not impact grades, that teachers will use this information to enter absences in PowerSchool. And the default is present in PowerSchool. So whenever we talk about entering grades, we would be going back in to change anything that's present back to absent. And we'll be determining attendance for asynchronous learning by on-time assignment completion. So teachers have access to record attendance in Power School 7 days in arrears. So for those asynchronous days, whenever there's an on-time assignment completion expected, we'll be able to look back over those days and assign attendance credit for those. And a lot of discussion really revolved around how attendance is just the starting point for student engagement. So we have quite a bit of discussion coming up with our schools, district, and community that'll center around our work on meaningfully engaging students in teaching and learning.
Stephen, you want to add to that?
Yeah, to jump into Bill's point, I would love just to kind of reiterate the importance of our students being active participants in the learning experience. Our teachers are working very hard right now to create these learning environments that are different than the spring, but we have to collectively be engaged especially on those synchronous days, because we found out through our surveys that face-to-face interaction was hugely wanted from our families. So even when we move forward and talk about the schedules in a bit, the system has been built just for that, to have a greater sense of connectivity, even in a remote environment where connectivity is a struggle. But we all have to do our parts in being actively participants and through those three models. But on those synchronous days, when you really want that connection, we got to make sure that we are thriving in those environments.
Yeah, and I think we just wanted to make sure that it was something that we talked about the gray area pieces, and we wanted to kind of make sure that the teachers, the students, the families, they kind of were it was pretty clear how attendance was going to be taken. Obviously, the synchronized days, that's pretty cut and dry, and the asynchronous, whether it be the assignment piece or even, I know, like we mentioned, like for using Canvas with the college for CCP, I can see a timestamp when they log into that platform, and it tells me that they were there, so I know immediately that they were there. So, and the flexibility of going back within the 7-day window in Power School, I think, was also a thing that we made sure that was there. And again, we don't want to penalize a kid in any way, shape, or form in trying to be understanding, get them engaged. And I even made mention on the synchronous days, if there's a kid that we see, hey, wasn't there the day before, and a non-synchronous day, you can say, hey, where were you? Is there something we can do to kind of get you motivated to get in there in that capacity? So it was a good discussion.
So Ross, if I could jump in. So practical for me, asynchronous versus synchronous. So we're talking in plain language. There's not going to be an expectation from kindergarten through 12 or pre-K through 12 to have daily lectures and have the kids logged on during those times to actually see a live lecture moment going on with their instructors.
So we are about to get to the schedules. That's going to go in great depth into that.
I'm in a hurry. And then I'll go back to one of the things you guys were talking about with the standards-based grading, just so we're clear. When you say we're stepping away from the standard-based grading, does that mean that we're going back to the traditional grading scale that we had?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So here's schedules.
Thank you.
Michael, you want to set up just kind of scheduling process as a whole before kicking it to Aretha to talk specifically about secondary?
Absolutely. So the priority was in building and talking with work groups around the potential of a schedule, that connectivity was important. That face-to-face time with teachers where some direct instruction can occur, but also at the same time, being able to be flexible enough to have small group instruction as needed in breakout rooms for either enrichment or intervention. And then also, there's a lot of research on being aware of screen time. So we wanted to take those things into consideration. And the process was such, work group put some drafts out, administrators with their teachers got their hands on it, beat it up a little bit, and worked through several renditions. And that's what Aretha and Bill are going to walk us through today. But definitely want to applaud everyone for presuming positive intent with the initial drafts, putting ideas on the table, posing questions, and then coming together with something that I think is going to be very workable for our students and staff alike.
Yeah, so Aretha, you want to walk us through high school schedule?
Yeah, so the high school schedule is basically built as basically a regular type of schedule with in blocks. And these blocks, and I'll say this over and over again, the blocks are not intended for kids to be, so first period is from 8:50 to 9:20. It is not intended for kids to be being lectured to from 8:50 to 9:20. The intention of any block, and I'll say this again at the middle school schedule, as we break it down a little bit further, is that there will be some synchronous time where the teacher is doing direct instruction and teaching kids new concepts. But then there'll be time, just like in a regular classroom, where you say, okay, go ahead and practice. So they can stay on the screen and do that practice work, or they can log off the screen if the teacher's done teaching. But it's definitely not a sit there for 30 minutes while a teacher talks at you. So they have the breaks in the middle to get, to give kids time away from the screen. And then the student and staff lunch period is there.
And do you want to talk the asynchronous days as well, Aretha, just with that before we go to middle school?
Yeah, so the asynchronous days, they are to definitely to have lessons that may be scaffolded on the previous synchronous day. So if they're teaching a concept on Monday, which is a synchronous day, and they were able to get some concepts, some standards kind of narrowed down to what they want students to know and be able to do, and then have another lesson that builds on that on the asynchronous day on Tuesday that kids are supposed to log in and work on. So again, it's constant learning every day, every period of the day, but it's not constant screen time in front of your face the entire time. So also on asynchronous days, they have time for small groups. They can do, as Jane was saying, they can do pull out, they can do speech. And so in those staff members will, just like we do in a brick and mortar building, they will set up the kids' schedule. In brick and mortar, when a kid has to go out for speech, they go out for speech. And they may miss something during that time, but they leave and go to their speech lesson and they come back. So same thing, they can log out of their Zoom classroom at first period, go get their speech lesson, come back in, and be able to continue their learning.
We've got all contact information here for the high school. Again, more contact information. And then we'll get into the middle school schedule.
So the middle school schedule was a little bit.
Hang on one second, Aretha.
Just 1 second.
Yep.
Aretha, did you talk about how there would be different assignments this year at the high school based upon last name?
Oh, no, I did not. So yes, so basically based upon your last name, you will be assigned a assistant principal, a counselor, social worker, and a secretary, and they will follow you all the way through your high school experience. So as a freshman coming in, you will have the same team with you and it's great for relationship building. So kids don't have to get to know somebody else every single year. They will already basically have that relationship with their assistant principal, counselor, social worker, and a secretary.
All right, and then the middle school schedule.
The middle school schedule was a little more tricky because in sixth grade, they have to have, I think, 910 hours, and seventh and eighth grade have to have 1,001 hours, hours in a year. And so we kind of had to play with it a little bit to make sure that we got that time in for students. But so on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, those are the synchronous real-time learning with teachers. And again, It's not where, and I'll say this ad nauseum because I think, well, I read some research that said you have to hear something 15 times before it's like stuck there. So anyway, so we're working on 15. So yeah, so it is not for students to be sitting in front of a screen for 40 minutes. There are 40-minute periods here. They'll have their 4 cores and an elective. Teachers, we're really trying to drive home, teach for 7 to 10 minutes, let them practice, teach for 7 to 10 more, let them practice on synchronous days. And those are those face-to-face days. So on Tuesday and Thursday is their asynchronous days. And again, just like the high school, they will have lessons that they are required to do that won't, in some cases, could be new learning, but in a lot of cases, it won't be new learning. But teachers will be available if there is new learning. Teachers are available during those time slots on asynchronous days. In I think 2 hours in the morning. Could you go to the next slide for me? I think it's on the next slide. Thank you. Yes. So from Tuesdays and Thursdays, it's the asynchronous middle school schedule where they are in the morning there from 9:30 to 11:30. There's 2 hours there, and then 2 hours and a little bit more time in the afternoon. We know how our kids like to, during these times, teachers will be available to assist them with their work. And we just want to make sure that kids are getting a first class education during this remote online learning time. And we're following that all up with, we're leading into it with educating our teachers on what good teaching looks like online. Through our ed camps, which I think Barb talked about, to make sure that our teachers are ready, because everybody's new at this. And but just because we're new doesn't mean we can't be good.
Again, we've got the middle school contacts here. And then Bill, you want to talk about elementary?
Sure. So you'll notice that this schedule has changed quite a bit from the last one that we posted. We're looking at grades K through 5 for synchronous learning, Monday through Friday. And teachers have work time from 8 to 9, where they'll be working on things like lesson planning, getting their online classrooms ready, attendance, and then that'll lead us into the morning meeting that goes from 9 to 9:15. And during that time, we'll be talking about our morning opening, our announcements, motivational messages, and a focus on social emotional learning. And then from 9 o'clock or 9:15 until 12 o'clock is the scheduled instructional time. And that's been broken down into 3 blocks where we have mini breaks or brain breaks in between each one of those 3 blocks. And then lunch and recess is scheduled from 12 to 12:30. And in the afternoon is when we have art, music, PE, library, computer scheduled. And the reason that you see afternoon there is that our elementary kiddos will have access to what we're calling a choice board. So during the course of the week, they'll participate asynchronously in their itinerant classes. So some of the reasons for the flexibility in the schedule and not being so rigid about first block being reading, second block being math is so that we can work in some more things like co-teaching, inclusive practices. We have quite a few classrooms that departmentalize, and grade-specific band instruction like foundations and intervention times that teachers need to work into their schedules. But that's it in a nutshell.
Again, contact information for elementary. And then Bill, you want to talk a little bit about the preschool schedule as well?
Sure. The most significant change that that happened with the preschool schedule is taking into consideration the amount of time that our 3 and 4 year olds can spend in front of a computer. And when it was originally drafted, it was more like a brick and mortar schedule. So the screen time has been significantly reduced, and you can see there that the teacher work time is 8 to 9 like the rest of the elementary. And then in the AM, there's flexibility where there's a student and family online engagement. And then in the afternoon, that it extends as well, and those are synchronous collaboration. So our preschool teachers will be working with families in the afternoon with phone calls and Zooms and contacts. And then also, like Jane said, that's where we'll also be able to work in itinerant speech and special related services.
No, we're all going to have just a quick second. In talking with Ms. Diedrich about the preschool, one of the big emphasis is an increased priority along collaborating with families. So there's going to be a lot of outreach. There is going to be a lot of personalized attention. So we're here to speak to that. That would be a priority. So with that being said, we want our preschool families to know we are caring about you just as much as we do K through 12, and your early experiences are just as important. So please enroll. Let's get started. And our families, our staff will do a great job of reaching out to make sure that we are collaborating and that preschool is considered a priority for our district.
I'd like to add too, right now we are actively registering 4-year-olds. So just a reminder that preschool in Lorain City Schools for 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds, it's a free program. Our preschools are 5-star. We have great teachers, and we'd really love to be able to introduce your Titan to education in our district.
So then just back to where we started with our original leadership team at the beginning of our process. Here they were. And then one last reminder on connectivity. So that's our plan.
Any questions from the board? On the why or the what's?
Just a comment. So we indicated that earlier when we were in this phase was at 11, and we did the focus group piece, and there was obviously less participation than we expected, needed, especially with the fidelity to the plan. That was a significant part of it. What is and again, sometimes better late feedback than no feedback. So is there an ongoing opportunity for us to engage those families? I think if we could kind of talk to that, because some folks may not have been aware or for communication reasons or whatever, but there will be other opportunities for our families to engage. And then I was also shocked. I mean, we go from getting almost 100% participation in the survey from our faculty to a very reduced, and that's kind of feels like an enigma or something, an anomaly. So do we have any idea on what happened? I mean, it sounds like, was there a process piece? Was there a misunderstanding? Because that's inconsistent with the participation we've had.
Yeah, so there are a few things there, Tim. And the first one is absolutely. So we've got to design it exactly yet, but at some interval, maybe every 3 weeks, every 4 weeks, we're going to be reaching out to families across the district. So the key here is that we're not rolling out a plan just to roll it out, but we want to look at sustainable implementation. And so what we need to know now after our initial rollout is how well is it working and what do we need to do to adjust. And I'll show you an example of that coming up here in a minute with our ed camps. We need to know from our families a number of things. We made a dramatic adjustment to meal service delivery, for example. We need to see a much better than response from our families than we saw initially in the summer. So, and it's not being critical of any past practice at all. It's a matter of we need to learn based on what we know, we need to adjust. And so, we could see that there was a large percentage of our families who could be taking advantage of, wanted to take advantage of meals and weren't. So we need to adjust. So like Dr. Graham said, we went from 9 now locations to 36. So we need to see if that's working. So we're going to check here in a few weeks to see, is that working? We look very specifically at mental health needs, at medical needs, at technology, and then what's working well with remote learning and what isn't. We need to progress monitor ourselves on those items so we can see, yeah, our meal distribution has changed dramatically, and now we've had a dramatic increase in families that are able to participate in our meal program. We saw that we had some significant challenges around devices. Well, we're providing every student now in the district with devices. Is that working? So we need to know that. We asked a number of questions about remote learning in the spring. One of them was participation. Well, we're going to take attendance and we need to be able to see, are we seeing a much better rate of participation now for our students? So the key to our plan going forward is that we have the same collaborative approach, but now we pivot from developing the plan to what is sustainably implementing it look like. And so we need to check. And so that means that we will be calling our families. We're doing the online version of surveys again. We're going to try to get as many voices on the table as possible. And again, we've got to define that. We'll work with Aaron, the communications group, to the real specifics of it. But every 3 to 4 weeks, we need to know where we are. That's on the family side. Similar on the staff side. So we need to be asking our staff, what's going well for you now with the plan? How are the schedules working? How is attendance working? How is participation with students working? What do we need to do adjust here? So the similar approach with our staff then, so that we can be really clear about where we are and what we need to do to adjust. So that's the first part there. The second part with the focus groups, the first thing with the families, we aren't exactly sure because we had RSVPs. And so we felt good about that. But then that also conflicted the night of the forum discussion, the town hall. So inadvertently, and this is a learning point for us, we were competing with ourselves for our family's attendance that night. So that I think certainly was a factor. On the teacher side, staff side, not just teachers, but the staff side, we're not really sure, quite honestly, because we had selected folks randomly to mirror our demographic to participate. We sent out, we got confirmations, and then we ended up with less than we expected. So I'm not really sure, quite honestly. But going forward, we will absolutely build in checks so we can see where are we, and based on that, are we in a better spot? Yes or no? If so, why? If not, how come? What do we need to do to adjust? So that we can be as responsive to the adjustments as we were to putting the plan together in the first place by starting with our staff and families to see what their needs are, that collectively form our needs to design our plan.
Thank you.
Do you have anything further?
No. I do actually, just very briefly, and then Ross mentioned ed camps, and I just want to pop some stuff up, but I just want to thank the folks who, and I mentioned this at the last meeting, it's one thing to put yourself out there and teach your peers because you know more about this area of education than they do. But when this situation is when your peers are a group of teachers who are judged for a living, I mean, the whole teaching piece. So I just want to thank folks for making themselves vulnerable, both as presenters as well as participants. And I know we're talking about teachers for the most part, but we also have support staff members who are taking the lead in ed camps. And I also want to announce, and I believe it's tomorrow morning, we're up at ed camp from 9 to 11, and the chair of our academic distress commission, Randall Sampson, does this for a living, and he's volunteering his time tomorrow to lead our staff through an ed camp on flip chart. Yeah, we're flip rate. So yeah, I'm just excited to watch everybody kind of come together and work together on this.
So let's talk just our main form of staff development during the 3 weeks has been a staff leading staff model. And Barb, you want to talk just a little bit about ed camps and the setup of it?
Yeah, this was, I had always heard of ed camps where, like physical ed camps. And when this issue was brought up, or the opportunity was brought up to have like a virtual ed camp, the folks that I reached out to, and I know that the union like asked people who would want to be a part of this, and we, like all these people, like were so, willing and ready to, meet this challenge. And we started before school started. We had 3 days of sessions before school started, and the turnout was tremendous. We then continued, and at the end of each day, we sent out a survey. Those people would, let us know how we were doing. The people who I called my ed camp counselors, they were the people hosting the sessions. They had the availability of looking at the surveys. I would then invite more people, teach them the process, and it's really grown. And now what we have is I have a live binder. It's just another software that houses different things, and we put all the recorded sessions into the live binder by date. And so now people have the access to not only go to the live sessions on the days that we're offering them, but we can go to the recorded sessions and they can view them over and over again if they need to. There's also a place for the documents, because the camp counselors, so to speak, they created an agenda or a written path as to how to go through these different programs. It's been super successful, and people are constantly reaching out and saying, hey, when are you putting the videos up for, one day to the next? So it's just been a really positive experience.
So part of that is then to check with staff and survey them, and at the end, find out how well do we do. And so here are results from our first ed camp, and the Zoom windows blocking the numbers on the right. But we asked a number of questions, but the first one is just overall I was satisfied with ed camp. And 1 or 2 is either extremely unsatisfied or unsatisfied. 3 is kind of neutral, and then 4 or 5 is satisfied and extremely satisfied. And overall, the results are really excellent, that our staff has been very satisfied with ed camp. Now, our least satisfied group so far has been our pre-K through 2 teachers. So we look at that and we need to make some adjustments right away. So we're going to have additional sessions coming up here on early reading. We're also going to emphasize Seesaw, for example, as a platform to target our earlier grades. But we need to know right away, how are we doing? So overall, satisfaction with the ed camp is really good across all levels, but we need to do a little better with pre-K through 2. We also ask, maybe, this takes a while to click here. I'll definitely use 1 or more of the tools I learned from remote learning with students and their families. And the results overall are very positive. So when you combine the 4s and the 5s together, the satisfied and extremely satisfied, really good. We need to do a little bit better with pre-K through 2. Using tools with colleagues. And the emphasis last week's ed camps was on communication tools, and then we started getting some curricular tools. But overall, our staff is saying, yeah, we will use these tools overwhelmingly when we communicate with our colleagues. And then one of our commitments here is that anything that happens through the ed camp should also be part of a practice for in-person learning. And so our question here is, I plan to use 1 or more tools I learned at ed camp in the future when school is open again. And again, we need to do a little bit better job with pre-K 2, but as a whole, our staff is saying yes, overwhelmingly, they would use these tools when we return to in-person learning. So far with the ed camps, we're up to a really good start, but we ask this at the end of each session so we can make sure we're on the right track, and then make whatever adjustments that we need to make. So that's just a little bit on Ed Camp. Barb or Michael, anything you guys else you want to add to it?
I think you covered it. Thanks.
Yeah, I think you covered it. I just would like to say that as a model moving forward, as a professional learning model, this is definitely how we want to engage our staff. We need to learn what the needs are, see what we have internally to help address those needs, and then outsource as needed. But as long as we can continue to listen to staff and put our staff in front to lead, we're in a great spot. It really builds that collective efficacy, which in turn has a trickle effect to all parts of our organization.
Questions on that? Okay. So we got for you.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Okay, appreciate your patience over the past couple months, over the past couple hours to do this. And again, as Ross mentioned, this is something we'll constantly monitor and adjust along the way and do our best to over communicate so people are more to know.
Thank you. Next item is 12. Any new business that we need to discuss? Anybody got anything for new business? Committee reports? Hearing none. Number 14, our next hearing of the public. Do we have anything further from the public?
Good evening, board, Dr. Graham, community. My name is James Boyce. I'm an intervention specialist at the high school as well as the head high school football coach. And I think that back in January, I was hired for that position to lead the program. So I think this is a time where leadership is needed. And I guess I just want to be the voice of the program. And I don't want to overstep my boundary, but also maybe try to represent all fall athletics and extracurriculars. When we talk about, when we open up our staff meetings, we talk about doing what's right by our kids and doing everything that we can for our kids to make sure that we're giving them the most normalcy we can in a not so normal time. And strictly talking about the high school level, we have 115 kids that are playing football. We drop that down to the 3 middle schools, all the youth programs. When we talk about all the other sports, we're talking about hundreds of kids that are experiencing a not normal time and the sense of normalcy that we can provide for them, mandated by the governor, Mike DeWine, allowing OHSA athletics, allowing band. We're taking that from them. So the normalcy that we can provide for them, we're taking that from them. And I understand from the town hall meeting that we talked a lot about the demographic of Lorain and how African Americans are more susceptible to COVID and the death rate is higher. And I respect those numbers, but I'm not sure 100% if this applies. I think it's a credible source, but from census.gov, the African American population in Lorain County is 17.2%. When you look at Bedford, who's an LEL school, everybody else in the LEL is participating. Every other school in Lorain County is participating. When you look at Bedford, 56.5% African American. Maple Heights, 73%. Warrensville Heights, 91.2%. Shaw and East Cleveland, 91%. Cleveland Heights, 42.8%. Shaker Heights, 35.3%. And Lassie Garfield Heights, 48.4%. We are significantly lower than all those. All those schools are currently practicing and have a week 1 game scheduled, with the exception of Garfield Heights. Coming from there last year, I talked to Jason Osborne, the head coach there. He has a practice scheduled for tonight, expecting their board to approve for them to move forward. So that would put us, Lorain High School, as the only LEL school not participating, as well as the only Lorain County school not participating. I'd like to take it a step further and say, and not further and say, but just to make people aware, it's not too late for us to be able to participate. Garfield Heights will have their first day today. They have a week 2 game scheduled against Shaw High School already. There are still teams looking for competition. It's kind of been a rat race, and there's been a heck of a lot of fluidity through the entire pandemic, as well as with scheduling. And there's still an opportunity for us to get games scheduled. Right now, there's 6 regular season games, and then we get to go into the playoffs. Every team making the playoffs. If you get eliminated from the playoffs, the OHSA allows you to then reschedule. So there's teams right now scheduled every week except for their playoff week. What I'm saying is, even if we enter week 3 or week 4, we are still eligible for playoffs, and we can still play 6 or 7 or 8 games. And I feel like Brandon Davis on the wall is talking to me, because when I was a college coach for 9 years, Brandon Davis came to us from Lorain High School. He played 1 year of football, guys, his senior year. He was a basketball player for 4 years, if I'm not mistaken. $36,000 a year to Lake Erie College. He got to go there for 5 years for free because he got to play football his senior year. We have many students, many football players right now seeking athletic financial aid in order to attend college. They're not going to attend without that money, guys. And I think if we want to do right by our kids, we really have to reevaluate the decision that was made, knowing that it's not too late, knowing that there's still time to get our kids back out on the field, back in the band room, back on the volleyball court, wherever that may be, to give them this opportunity. It's not a normal time. I want to provide, I think our kids deserve that normalcy. Like I said, I really just want to stress that and flip it on the other side. As a college coach for 9 years, we can watch film of a kid running fast. That's nice. We can watch film of a kid with great change of direction. That's good. A kid who has a great vert. That's good. But you're not going to offer financial money to a kid that you can't see play the game. Because to give you $36,000 a year to help the program win football games, they want to evaluate you playing football. So I'm not going to give up on our kids. I'll do everything that I can in my power. I have a few coaches here. They'll do everything they can in their power to promote our kids, prepare our kids, and help get them to the next level. But from the other perspective, being on the other side of that business for 9 years, when the kid from Amherst, or the kid from Elaria, or the kid from Garfield Heights, Bedford, Maple Heights, Cleveland Heights, when they're playing and our kids are not, our kids aren't getting that opportunity. And we're taking that from them, knowing that other kids are getting that opportunity. Like I said, I just want everybody to reconsider their decision. When we make decisions about our education, we reach out to parents to get input. I'm not sure that we reached out to parents to get input on whether or not they want their kids playing sports. So we may have dropped the ball there. We may have been better off seeking community feedback. Because when we were allowed to practice from June 15th or work out from June 15th to August 3rd, the kids were there. The parents were supporting them. We were complying with all health protocols in place. We passed out over 3,360 meals to our kids from Aramark, giving them breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day that they showed up. And we had zero COVID cases. There are other schools doing it. There are 91 in Northeast Ohio doing it. There's us and 17 others that aren't. And I'm not saying let's follow the leader and do everything just because everybody else does it. Lorain's a special place because we do things the Lorain way, and I get that. But I think that it would be just for us to reevaluate this decision, and I'm begging you to do that because it's not too late, folks. It's not too late to get our kids back out there. They might miss a week 1 or a week 2 game, and that's okay. But let's not take 10 away from them. Let's give them the opportunity that they deserve. There's a lot of obstacles. There's a lot of adversity for our kids in Lorain. We can all acknowledge that when they're in school or when they're on an extracurricular, whether it's band, football, basketball, tennis, whatever sport it may be, they are safer with us. Myself and my staff, we are great men. We will provide the male influences, role modeling. We will hold them accountable. They will be disciplined. They will be pushed to reach expectations that we talk about all the time as being through the roof. With everything that I have, I'm asking for us to reconsider this decision.
I don't have the voice that he's got, so I'm probably won't need this. My name is Mark Feldman. I teach biology here at the school. I've been here for 33 years. When I left the house tonight, I told my wife said, no, honey, what, honey? You know what she said? Don't say a word. Just go and sport. Don't say a word. But God spoke to me. I sat here, you know, I'm going to talk about this all week to everybody I see. Why not tell you guys? You're the people who need to hear it. So I got to get up and talk. 33 years. taught, coached, been in these kids' houses. My wife gets so upset. Yes, taking them home, buy them sandwiches. I mean, everybody can say that we all love our kids. But, I don't know if I can coach a lick of basketball, but I love my kids. And nice, it's not here tonight on this show. Sometimes I get emotional in practice. She says, Coach, you about to cry? So I'm gonna be cool. I'm gonna keep it together. But these kids need us. And I need them. I mean, that's why I got into this. So some people, well, our kids are never gonna amount. You hear people say, it drives me crazy. I'm not even from here. I grew up in Michigan, but I've been here 33 years. It drives me crazy when people say, well, that's Lorain. And I say, shame on you. Well, that's how Lorain is. It's up to us to fix Lorain. I'm ecstatic that Dr. Graham's back. I see on that video, it's great to see Michael Scott. I'm ecstatic at what we're about to do. I only got a couple more years to teach. 3, 4, who knows? How long I'm having fun of it. People ask me all the time, are you about done, Coach? What was this supposed to be? But these kids are everything to us. And these guys, they drive them home too. They do the same things I'm talking about. And I give this young football coach a lot of credit tonight for getting up here and saying that stuff. I'm sure he's nervous. He's a brand new coach. Everybody out here is nervous. We're all here in this together. And when I heard, my season doesn't even start till December, till November. I got a ways. Maybe things are all going to get better, but it breaks my heart when I heard that football was canceled, that some of the girls on my basketball team couldn't play volleyball, can't go to band practice. Let's be completely honest here. We're all still going, us adults. You guys are all still doing things. I'm still doing the things that are important to me. If I want to go somewhere, if I want to go to Topgolf, I'm going to go to Topgolf. No, I would be safer staying at home tonight because COVID's out there. I get it. I know people who have passed because I have a friend that passed. This has touched all of us, but we all still do the things we need to do, the things we want to do. I'm getting on Zoom meetings daily, and there's administrators even in this building. There's people, they're late to the Zoom. Oh, where are you? I was dropping my son off football practice. We talk to people every day in this building. Adults that have their kids in band somewhere, in soccer team somewhere, in football somewhere. And yet we are taking that. Our kids don't have $50 to go to Cedar Point. Some of us are going to Cedar Point still. They're going to Kalahari. We're doing things still. And these kids can't. And like he said, when we have them with us, we did this all summer. When they're with us, they're in good shape. Who's to say they're going to come get COVID? Now, I know the concern is that they might get COVID, somewhere out in the community and then bring it to football practice. Well, that can happen with anything. They can bring it to Walmart, guys. So I ask you, we have the hardest working, everybody out there, we probably have the hardest working, I think you won an award a year or so ago, the hardest working athletic director in the state of Ohio. And if anybody can put a football schedule together real quick, Brian Corey can do it. That's how strong I believe in Brian. So I respect you guys totally. I went to Columbus and I did the House Bill 70 thing, and I did all the things. Mr. Ballard, all you guys, I respect it. I respect you guys like crazy. I've been entrenched with that whole process. I'm glad where we're at, and I'm excited about where we're going. The whole distance learning, I'm not excited about it, but I'm on those Zoom things every day. I'm going to try to be the best teacher I can be in a virtual situation. I'm going to do it, okay? But I would ask that you reconsider and let these kids play some volleyball. Let them cheer. Let them go to band. Let them, the whole social, give Tim Civic a chance to social distance those kids. That's what I ask. Just ask me. I don't disrespect your decision. I just disagree with it. Okay, there's a difference. I respect you guys like crazy, but I disagree with what we're doing to our kids right now. There was a YouTube video the other day. Show of hands. Anybody see the YouTube video that was on YouTube 3 or 4 days ago. I know some people out there saw it. I can send it to you. Let me know. I can send it to you. Did you see it?
If you're talking about,
Talk about the kid,
the basketball.
the guy, YouTube guy,
Yeah.
came to Lorain anonymously to do this thing, and some guys pulled some guns out and said, listen, our kids, if they're not at my practice, that's where they're going to be. They're not going to stay home and do crossword puzzles. They're going to go to the park. They're going to be at Oakwood. They're going to be hanging out in someone's driveway. And you say, well, our kids are never going. Shame on you if you say that, because these are my kids. And I'm going to do anything, these guys will do anything we can. Teachers, you guys care about the kids. We're going to do anything we can to make sure our kids are safe. And you're taking the sports away. It's well intended. Don't get me wrong, it's well intended. But I just think it's the wrong approach. I think your kids need to be with us a couple hours a day, and I can even influence them. I miss my kids, and my kids miss me. So.
Is there anyone else?
John Rossano, basketball coach here at Lorain High. I just want to reiterate what head football coach said and what Mark said. I can't say any better, just that these kids need to be around us. I mean, we went 8 to 10 every morning in the summertime, followed all the protocols, and it went tremendous. We had, 25 kids in the gym in different stations. We did all the right things, and I'm just here to back up what the football coach said about they need to play. I mean, they need to play as soon as possible, and I can't say it any better than what you gentlemen just said. Thank you.
He just left. But being a member of the community and being part of the school system and a basketball coach and involved in our students' lives as much as I am, I appreciate the concern that you have for them. We're part of this village. Us coaches are part of this village that are raising these students, and it's all about opportunities. And we basically need to give our student athletes opportunities to create more opportunities so that they can be the best that they can be. You've entrusted us as coaches to help support, mentor, love, care for our students. And we just want that opportunity. It's almost like, you get in trouble and you come in and you have to go to bed early, but you hear your friends outside playing still. And you really didn't do anything wrong. And we're losing our kids. Maybe, I know the fear is that we might lose them physically, but we're losing them mentally as well. And I don't want that. They have an opportunity to go elsewhere right next door and continue to play the game that they love and do the things that they continue to do, the things that they love. And we're missing out on some great kids. And I'm afraid that what's going to happen is we're going to lose more than we win. And it's not about sports. It's something more important. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Anything from the board? Mr. Graham, you have anything further?
Nope, I do not.
So announcement of our next board meeting will be September 14th, right here at 5. I am aware that we had a tragedy that took place in our district this week, and we just want to send our condolences out to the family of our student, Mr. Williams. And I know we've been supporting the family and seeing after the family, and we will continue to pray for them. All else being clear, I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Support.
Roll call.
Mrs. Zario?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Ballard?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
And Mr. Sturgill?
Yes. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.
information that you'll be using.